Did you know that the wolffish has a jaw strong enough to crush a Coke can? Pretty wild, right? But that's not what we're here to talk about today. There's a good chance you've had this drink at least once in your life, especially if you live in Mexico, the US, or Norway. Today, we're diving into one of the most widely consumed drinks in the world, Coca-Cola. Some people drink it by the dozen, or even by the hundreds of liters a year, in the case of the most hardcore fans of the drink. I mentioned Mexico earlier because it's actually a country with the highest Coca-Cola consumption in the world, over 150 liters per person per year. Pretty crazy, right, Gustave?
Mm-hmm.
So, Gustave, do you drink a lot of Coke?
No.
Well, too bad, because we're switching things up. I'm challenging you to drink 5 cans of Coke a day for an entire year. What do you say? Honestly, things could be worse. I mean, compared to all the other stuff I've put you through. With an experiment like this, a ton of questions come to mind. What's going to happen to our test subject after all those liters of Coke? Will his blood turn to pancake batter from all the sugar? How hard is the caffeine going to hit him? Let's find out right now with today's big question. 1 year of drinking only Coca-Cola? What's it like? While Gustave is downing his first few cans, just a quick reminder, throughout this experiment, Gustave will keep a healthy, balanced diet. The only thing that's changing is his hydration. Instead of water, he's drinking nothing but Coke. In terms of quantity, 5 cans comes out to just over 1.6 liters. And since the recommended daily water intake is around 1.5 to 2 liters, we're actually right within the daily intake range. Gustave will still be able to live a normal life with regular social activities and everything. So Gustave, it's not such a tough challenge, right? Earlier, you mentioned you liked wine, but would you believe me if I told you that without wine, Coke probably never would have existed? Believe it or not, Coca-Cola was directly inspired by a French drink made with Bordeaux wine called vin Mariani or Mariani wine. This beverage, created by a guy named Angelo Mariani, was made by soaking coca leaves in red wine. It became a worldwide hit before fading into obscurity, replaced by a copycat drink, French wine cola, which was eventually renamed Coca-Cola. To avoid getting sued for a trade secret theft, John Pemberton, the inventor of Coke, had the idea of adding cola nuts to the recipe. Then came Prohibition, and he had to swap out the wine for sweetened sparkling water. The result, something between a lucky accident and a bold imitation. Little by little, Coca-Cola took off, and its success continues to this day, since it's estimated that over 17,000 bottles of Coke are sold worldwide every second. 3 days in, and our Gustave has downed 15 cans. That's nearly 5 liters of Coke. Let's see what's changed so far. So Gustave, feeling any different? Yeah, you're feeling a little jittery, huh? That makes sense, because drinking Coke means you're getting a hefty dose of caffeine. Right now, Gustave's taking in the equivalent about 2 cups of coffee per day, but spread out over the whole day. No wonder he's feeling tense, restless, maybe even on edge, because caffeine stimulates the body. I'm guessing you're already getting a little sick of it, right, Gustave? Or maybe not. Looks like he's still loving it. There's a pretty simple reason for that. Coke is packed with sugar, a lot of sugar. Just one has the equivalent of 7 sugar cubes. Since Gustave's drinking 5 cans a day, that's 35 cubes or 175 grams of sugar every single day. In case you didn't know, our bodies love sugar. In fact, it's a matter of survival. For the body, sugar is pure energy. When it gets some, it's thrilled because it sees a chance to store up something valuable for later. Kind of like a squirrel stashing food up for the winter. On top of being an energy source, sugar also stimulates the brain to release serotonin, a neurotransmitter that creates feelings of calm and comfort. So far things sound a little too good, so we're gonna let a little time pass to see if it lasts. It's now been a full month with nothing but Coke to drink for our guinea pig Gustave, and he's already drunk about 50 liters of the stuff. The most obvious change, he's put on weight. I'd say about 11 to 13 pounds, or about 5 to 6 kilos. Rest assured, I'm not pulling this out of thin air. I'm basing it on the story of George Pryor, an American who tried almost the exact same experiment as our friend Gustave. For a whole month, George drank not 5 but 10 cans of Coke every single day. And just like Gustave, he didn't change anything else about his diet, which was otherwise healthy. That's why we can be so precise about the effects of drinking this much Coke. Even better, George got regular blood tests and recorded video updates throughout the experiment to share how he was feeling. After just a few days, he'd already gained a bit of weight and wasn't feeling great, but by the end of the month, he'd gained over 22 pounds or 10 kilos. No joke, he couldn't even button his pants anymore. Which raises a good question, is it really just the Coke that made him gain all that weight? Let me remind you that nothing else changed in George's diet. The only difference was the Coke. And like almost all sodas, Coke is packed with sugar. All that added sugar piles up on top of the sugars we're already getting from food. The sugar in soda is completely unnecessary for the body, but it still gets stored. And unless you burn it off, it just keeps building up. In fact, in order to burn up the sugar from one can of Coke, you would have to go on a 1-hour jog, which means our test subject would basically need to spend a big chunk of his day jogging if he wanted to keep that slim figure. But weight gain isn't the only concern. Take a good look at Gustave. Gustave's really not doing great. The constant caffeine in his system is messing with his sleep. He's showing all the signs of sleep deprivation, he's tired and irritable, and the caffeine only makes it worse by keeping him in a constant state of tension. It's a vicious cycle. He's exhausted and jittery, but there's nothing he can do about it. And spoiler alert, things aren't going to get any better with time. Gustave has now been drinking 5 cans of Coke every day for 6 months. At this point, he's reached around 900 cans, which comes out to just under 300 liters of Coke since the experiment began. Budget-wise, it's cost him around $425, assuming he's been buying in bulk to save money. On average, that's $70 a month just for his Coca-Cola intake. It's not nothing, but in a way, it's good that it costs that much. If we go back to the example of Mexico, which I mentioned at the start of the video, the prices there are a whole nother story. In some places in Mexico, sugary sodas are cheaper than water, while Coca-Cola in Mexico is at about the same price as water. This has had devastating consequences on the population, with people drinking more soda than water. In Mexico, the obesity rate is about 28%, and nearly 7 out of 10 people are overweight. Coca-Cola is so deeply woven into Mexican society that it's actually replacing traditional drinks. They even sometimes use it during church services. No joke. Just think, a former president of Mexico was even the head of the Coca-Cola group in Mexico before governing the country. That's how well established Coca-Cola has become in Mexico. Talk about brand influence. But let's get back to Gustave. I don't want to be rude, Gustave, but you've put on quite a bit of weight. You've put on over 50 pounds or several dozen kilos, and you're slowly approaching, well, obesity. Then again, with that much Coke every day, it was kind of inevitable. Just to be clear, Gustave has been drinking regular Coca-Cola since day one. And yeah, it's fair to wonder if things would have gone differently with Diet Coke or Coke Zero. The answer is absolutely. Remember George Pryor, the guy who drank 10 cans of Coke a day for a month? So after his first experiment, George decided to try the same challenge, but this time with Diet Coke. And the results were very different. Diet Coke has more caffeine, so George actually struggled more with nervousness and had sleep problems. But on the flip side, he didn't gain any weight at all, and his blood test at the end showed that nothing had changed. His blood test results were more or less the same as before his experiment. Still, Diet Coke isn't a miracle solution, not by a long shot. Diet Coke contains far more chemical additives, about which we know very little, and we know even less about their long-term effects. So sure, medium and long-term risks may be lower with diet rather than regular Coke, but honestly, you're still better off drinking water. But let's not get ahead of ourselves, Gustave's journey isn't over yet. Time's flying by, and Gustave has gained a lot of weight. Based on George Pryor's weight gain, Gustave has likely put on around 88 pounds, that's 40 kilos. At this point, he's gained half his original body weight. And to think he didn't even like Coke that much at the beginning, and now he's totally hooked. That's mostly due to the sugar, which, as we've seen, the body craves a lot. But is there some other secret ingredient in Coke that makes it addictive? Maybe. We can't say for sure because the Coca-Cola recipe is one of the best kept secrets in the world. We have a general idea of what's inside, but the exact formula? That's classified. It's such a closely guarded secret that even most factory workers who make Coca-Cola have no idea what's actually inside it. Workers in the factories receive different ingredients to mix, but always in very specific proportions. The original recipe itself is locked away in a vault at the World of Coca-Cola in Atlanta, Georgia. Still, even with all the secrecy, we do have a rough idea of what's inside. The original Coca-Cola recipe is said to include cinnamon, orange, nutmeg, cola nuts, coriander, lime, and of course sugar and caramel. It also contains citric acid, caffeine, and other chemical colorings. But the most mysterious and controversial ingredient is without a doubt the coca leaf. And just to clear things up right away, yes, cocaine is made from the coca leaf. So is there any cocaine in Coca-Cola? Officially, no. But one thing's for sure, there was a time when Coca-Cola really did contain cocaine. Speaking of addictive substances, let's take a quick detour to talk about Pepperton, the guy who invented Coca-Cola. He actually became addicted to morphine after fighting in the American Civil War. When he created Coke, he was also looking for a way to treat that addiction, though in reality, he just ended up replacing one addiction for another. Back then, the effects of cocaine weren't as well understood as they are today. In any case, Coca-Cola has officially been cocaine-free since the early 20th century. But to make up for it, they ramped up the caffeine and sugar content. And with that little side note out of the way, let's check back in with Gustave, who's finally reaching the end of the experiment. And just like that, the experiment comes to an end for Gustave. In total, he drank over 1,820 cans of Coke, which adds up to around 600 liters of Coke. In terms of pure sugar, that's around 141 pounds or around 64 kilos. So yeah, let's just say our test subject has put on a little bit of weight. Actually, scratch that, he hasn't gained a little weight, he's gained a lot. Over 110 pounds or around 50 kilos to be exact. Gustave is now officially obese. But that's not even the worst of it. With that much Coke in his system, Gustave has become diabetic and his weight puts him at risk for just about every condition linked to obesity. High blood pressure, artery inflammation, sleep apnea, kidney issues, and even cirrhosis. You've probably heard of that one. Cirrhosis is a liver disease that's commonly associated with heavy alcohol use, but it's not just alcohol that causes it. Recent studies have shown that drinking too much soda over time can actually have similar effects on the liver as alcohol. Not exactly great news. And poor Gustave isn't done suffering because after a whole year of this, he's actually gotten really used to drinking Coke. At this point, you could almost call it an addiction. He's going to have to detox, get used to not drinking soda all day, and learn to enjoy water again. Oh, and let's not forget, he also needs to lose all the weight he gained, which won't exactly be a walk in the park. In the end, Coke is like a lot of things in life. In moderation, the health effects are minimal, maybe not beneficial, but not harmful either. But once you start overdoing it, your health can really take a hit. In fact, about 10 years ago in New Zealand, a woman died of cardiac arrest and she was drinking 10 liters of Coke a day. Even with consumption that extreme, nothing definitively proved that Coke was the cause of her death. If you've ever had or still have serious issues with Coke or soda addiction, feel free to share your story in the comments. And if you managed to quit, definitely tell us how you did it and how long it took. As for our friend Gustave, he didn't die this time, but we're still gonna give him back his original body for the next experiment. There you go, buddy, good as new. And you have no idea what's coming next.